Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today we're going to be talking about some of the most rumors and one of the most recent rumors in the NBA today, as we're going to kind of be going over something that has happened over that Bradley Beal trade, as it was reported just today that Isaiah Todd, power forward / center of the Washington Wizards, is heading to Phoenix as well in the Bradley Beal trade that we saw happen to send Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns in a blockbuster deal to pair Bradley Beal with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and Beal teams up with those two superstars, and the three of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker combined it for 80 points per game this season. So they're going to be an offensive machine together, but there is no defense. But the reported trade, what it said with the trade is that so Beal was headed to Phoenix, and Landry Shamet, and Chris Paul, and a handful of seconds, and so multiple seconds, maybe around 3 to 4 second round picks, were headed to Washington with a pick swap. We don't know what that pick swap is. I would guess it's probably a first round pick swap, but who knows? So a pick swap, a handful of seconds, which is probably in the area of 3 to 5 second round picks. Landry Shamet, who had average 8.5 points per game this season, and CP3, or like people like to call him CP0. I'm just kidding. Chris Paul averaged 14, 9, and 4 this season. But it is expected that Chris Paul is not expected to stay with the Washington Wizards, that they were, well, I don't think Washington will waive him, but what people speculate is that Chris Paul will either be traded and a third team will get involved to land Chris Paul, like the Clippers or the Warriors potentially. And if not, then Chris Paul will be waived, which I think is the second option that is not favored for the Wizards. But reported today, there are 2 more players headed to the Phoenix Suns. First player, I'm not gonna go over him that much. Well, he had a solid season. Jordan Goodwin had a solid season with the Wizards this season. Averaged 6.6 points per game for the Wizards this year. Solid player, solid depth player, which the Suns need depth bad, but I don't think he's a guy who really is gonna cover depth for the Wizards, but is a solid player. So Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd are headed to the Phoenix Suns in this trade as well, which was not announced yesterday when this trade went down. But Isaiah Todd, I want to talk about him because Isaiah Todd was the 31st overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. It was the first pick in the second round, and because he was so young going into the NBA, he's barely played in the NBA in 2 seasons. In his 2 years, he's been in the G League most of his time. Because let's go over his stats. Because he only played 6 games for the Wizards this season and only 12 in the season before. Played 6 games with 1 start and 10.2 minutes per game, and averaged 1.5 points per game with 2 rebounds per game. And that was it. So, but in the G League this season for Isaiah Todd, he played 30 games with 4 starts, got 20 minutes per game with 6.5 points per game, and then it doesn't say his rebounds per game either. No, just 6.5. No, it says, I don't know, I can't tell which one's right, but it says he averaged 7, 3, and 1 this season. So he averaged 7 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, and 1 assist per game in the G League. Then in the 21-22 season in the G League, played 25 games, 25 starts, had 11.7 points per game. And then the 2021 season in the G League, played 15 games with 12.3 points per game. He's not really a scoring guy because, he's tall, he's big, he's 6'10", 6'11", something like that. But he's a solid young player, and I don't know, if he was fully on the roster for the Suns next year, I'm not expecting him to be a part of the backup rotation. Who knows? Maybe if Phoenix has a really, really huge problem with lacking depth in free agency because they do not have a lot of money to spend and they do not have a lot of good players off the bench right now. So who knows? Maybe he could be a part of the Phoenix backup rotation. But I do expect him to, if he stays in Phoenix, I do expect Isaiah Todd to, yes, we saw him in the G League, a bunch in the last couple seasons. I expect Phoenix to keep him on the roster most of the season. Maybe you'll see him in the G League a little bit, but you saw him in the G League more than you saw him with the NBA team, with the Wizards. And I don't really like how the Wizards developed him. I mean, I thought he could have potentially played more for Washington and done well, but he's also a decent 3-point shooter as well. Shoots around 30 to 35% from three for a big guy. It's pretty solid. But I mean, I think that if Phoenix can, develop him well, which I don't think Washington was doing really well, to be honest, maybe he could be solid for Phoenix. Nothing special, but solid off the bench, plays, when maybe he steps up if someone gets injured, or he, does great during garbage time, or, or who knows, he comes in for a couple minutes in a game, gets actual rotation minutes in a couple games. I think he could be solid for the Suns, but that's just my opinion, especially if the Suns are going to have a huge bench problem this season. But you guys have your thoughts. I think it's a solid. I mean, this is already a solid trade for Phoenix, getting Bradley Beal. Now they're getting Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd. I know it's not, these are, not great players for the Wizards last season, with Jordan Goodwin averaging 6.6 points per game and Isaiah Todd doing really solid in the G League. But the Suns have a huge depth problem, and if it becomes really bad, these are two extra guys that could be on the roster for the Suns next season. So I like it. They're both very young, both Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd. We'll see how both of those guys work out for Phoenix. It's not as big as Bradley Beal, not even close to what the Bradley Beal addition's going to be. But also both are really solid defensive players. Isaiah Todd's a solid defensive player, which the Suns need defensive help. So I mean, I think this was this was already a great trade for Phoenix. I think it just gets even better adding these two guys, and just a total fleech. But, I think Isaiah Todd is a solid young player. He's very young. It's too late to tell, but he won't be a part of the rotation next year. But I think he'll be a way part of the Suns organization next season than he has ever been with the Washington Wizards in his 3 seasons there. I mean, my bet would be he played 18 games with the Washington Wizards in his time there. I see Isaiah Todd playing way more than 18 games next season, like around 20 to 25 games next season for the Phoenix Suns, maybe even more. I mean, he's not going to be a part of the rotation, but I think he should help for sometimes for the Phoenix Suns, but especially if they're going to have a really bad depth problem. But he's young. He's 21 years old. We'll see how it does for Phoenix. Jordan Goodwin was also a solid player, but these are just going to be, to be honest with you guys, Isaiah Todd and Jordan Goodwin are just going to be a couple of guys that are going to be on the bottom of the bench for the Phoenix Suns. But at the same time, Phoenix does have a depth problem, so this does fill out some depth for Phoenix, adding these two guys in that Bradley Beal trade. You guys have your thoughts on the 2 additional pieces with Isaiah Todd and Jordan Goodwin headed to the Phoenix Suns in this trade? You guys have your thoughts, and peace out.